Welcome back to another episode of Sound Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and today I'll be reviewing the movie Trading Places. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A noobish investor and a Willie Street con artist find their positions reversed as part of a bet by two callous millionaires. So let's begin with my first pro. The reason I picked this movie was since Dumb Money recently came out, and that was the GameStop Wall Street Bets short selling scandal involving a lot of hedge fund firms. This movie plays into it because in the ending, it sort of happens the same way with short selling. For those who don't know what it is, I will have a link below explaining in simple terms, and also ties in with Wall Street Bets. So in a way, this movie is educational, and even in 2010 there was an act passed, the Wall Street Transparent and Accountability Act, which has a rule about insider information, and it is known as the Eddie Murphy rule. So you can say that this movie is comical, but at the same time it's educational. Next pro, we have a comedy duo stars mixed in with a scream queen. So we have Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy as the lead stars, and in the mix we have Jamie Lee Curtis, yes, from Halloween, and we have Paul Gleason, yes, from Breakfast Club. But we also have two actors from the 1930s, Ralph Bellamy and Don Ameche as the Duke brothers. Oh, and we also have cameos by Jim Belushi and Frank Oz. For those who are not familiar with Frank Oz, he is well known for doing the voices of Yoda, Cookie Monster, Miss Piggy, Grover, and many other Muppets. And Frank was also in the Blues Brothers movie with Jim Belushi's brother, John Belushi, and Dan Aykroyd and the director John Landis. Next pro, Eddie Murphy and John Landis liked the Duke brothers so much that they gave him a cameo in the film Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. There's a scene where they play homeless people down on their luck, and Eddie Murphy passes as his character alongside them and gives them money. And then the brothers talk to each other and they see the money and they reply by saying, "We are back." Some who see it now will say, oh, that is a setup for a sequel, but there was no sequel ever made. It could have just been an inside joke that maybe Eddie and John put in the movie and didn't think too much into it. Or they may have had plans to make another movie, but it never panned out. But who knows? This is just a nice touch that fans of John Landis movies get so they can see some of the characters cross over into other films. Next pro, this movie does have a good message that you can never judge a person by the environment they were raised in. That is one point of view that is still very real in our society nowadays. But here in the movie, since it's a comedy, you might not really think they would have this point in it, especially since they do call Eddie Murphy's character a Negro, and also Dan is seen in somewhat of a black face. But I've heard that they were aware of this and they wanted to push the envelope and see how far they can get with it. Looking back at this era, comedians didn't have any issues with these words. Take Richard Pryor and Blazing Saddles, where he wrote the screenplay along with Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks has said that he would run the black jokes by Richard, and sometimes Richard would suggest that he needed to be more edgy. Since in the films there were black, Jewish, white, gay, and even religious jokes put in there by Mel Brooks and Richard Pryor. Mel Brooks has once said in response to his film The Producers something along the lines of, he made fun of the Nazis in the film because in order to heal from those events, people have to learn to laugh at Hitler in order to heal and take away the power that he and the word Nazi have. Same might be applied here in this situation, since Eddie Murphy allows himself to be called a Negro, because I am sure that in real life he has been called that by others as an insult. So it wasn't really like they wanted to hide it. At the same time, they were making fun of others as well. But this is one thing that people have to decide for themselves. Either they see it as an offensive film, or they just see it as a comedy, being as close to real life as possible. Next pro, well, more like a side note, this script was actually made for Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder to be the stars, but it never took place. Then John Landis got a hold of it and set it up for Eddie Murphy and Dan to be the actors. So this is a nice side note to transition, and now onto my cons. I would say the pacing was not an issue, but how they jumped through the film rather too quickly and resolved everything, but how they did it with little explanation. I mean, they could have lingered a bit longer on the issue about futures and the stock market, maybe have Eddie and Dan explain it to Jamie Lee Curtis' character, and in that way the audience would be like, that is what the old men are trying to do, and this is how the protagonist will get them back. Because when I saw this film back in the day, I didn't quite understand what was happening at the end, but all I knew was that they eventually got back at them. If I had a better understanding about trading, then I would have found it more interesting. Next con, I feel that the length of the film for a 3-part story was too long. Maybe an hour and a half would have been a better choice. So my grade for this movie is going to be an 8 out of 10. As a kid, when I watched it, I didn't understand how Dan and Eddie got victory over the Dukes and then got rich. But after the whole Wall Street Bets thing, this movie has been, at least in my eyes, more relevant. And since it's a comedy, it's a win-win. Also, the stars in it and the cameos along with the humor that came with the film makes it an enjoyable film and quotable. I mean, it's not the perfect film, but it gets the job done. So that does it for this review of Trading Places. Please join us next time where we're going to review Elf.
You like sugar, huh?
Is there sugar in syrup?
Yes.
Then yes.
We elves try to stick to the 4 main food groups: candy, candy canes, candy corns, and syrup.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.